The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rhythm. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Happy opening day in Major League Baseball. You missed it. It's over. Overseas game between the Dodgers and Cubs. We'll get to that in just a second. Of course, a lot of the focus here this week on SportsGrid is the NCAA Tournament, and the play-in games begin tonight. So we'll have a full preview of that. We got Ben Stevens in the house with a preview of one of the games. Also, Michael DeCourcy, our SportsGrid college basketball expert, will be with us. Mark Zinno, who you see all over our network, will break down the games as well. Hopefully a pick or two ends up working out for you. Needless to say, this is your one-stop shop for all news, notes, and information surrounding sports betting, and this week, of course, the big dance, March Madness, and the NCAA Tournament. So stay on the grid for us for the next hour. We'll have some fun, go through all the results in the NBA and college basketball, of course, coming up tonight. But first, let us start with opening day. Yes, it happened in Tokyo. Major League Baseball finished up this morning its first game of the season, Cubs and Dodgers. In case you missed it, this one goes to the Dodgers. Final score, 4-1. They pick up where they left off last season. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. On the flip side, Shota Imanaga went just 4 innings and walked 4, struck out 2 for the Cubs. Tanner Scott, the new closer for the Dodgers, picked up his first save. No Freddie Freeman in this one, with rib discomfort. No word if he will play tomorrow. Again, 6:10 Eastern game, Roki Sasaki against Justin Steele. Those are the starters as they finish up this series in Tokyo. Dodgers still, by the way, favorites. Not that this is going to affect anything, but the Dodgers are still favorites to win the World Series. Braves 9-1, Yankees 9-1. Take your pick there. It doesn't always work out to be the favorite. I know it did last year, but Dodgers are still favorite, of course, to win the World Series. All right, Paul George not going to do his podcast for the rest of the season, also not going to play the rest of the season. That came fast, right? Life comes at you, as they say. This was reported by ESPN. He received injections in his left adductor muscle and left knee. That rules him out for 6 weeks. That takes care of the regular season for Philadelphia because they're not going to make the playoffs. He was consulting on a lot of different options, what to do. It just seems like the Sixers season was over, so he did this. By the way, in case you were wondering, this is one of the worst Sixers seasons ever. They are 23-45 on the season. And that is only 5 games out, Alex, of a play-in game in the NBA. What are we doing in the NBA? 23-45 and you're only 5 games out. I don't get it. Congrats to Bet365. They've opened up in Tennessee, officially launched. This is the 13th state that you can bet legally in on the app Bet365. Once upon a time, very, very popular outside of the United States, now popular in the United States as well. They become the 12th online sportsbook approved to take bets in Tennessee. BetMGM is there, so is Caesars, so is DraftKings, so is ESPN and FanDuel. If you live in Tennessee, that could be important to you. How about if you live in West Virginia? You may not be happy with your college basketball team not going to the NCAA tournament. One of the all-time snubs, it would appear, in the tournament, 19-13, 6 quad wins this season, but they lost in game 1 of the Big 12 tournament to Colorado, and it seems like they're getting a little testy there, a little bit salty there. Their governor, Patrick Morrisey, has lashed out at the men's NCAA tournament selection committee, and he's asking the Attorney General to investigate the snub and work closely with the NCAA to make sure that that process was fair. And he even did it in front of cameras. Here he is.
West Virginia deserved to be in the NCAA tournament. This was a miscarriage of justice and robbery at the highest levels. Now, who was the last team to get into the tournament ahead of the Mountaineers? That would be the University of North Carolina. Now, let's see how their resume stacks up. The Tar Heels went 1-12 in quad 1 games and even had a quad 3 loss. And we keep hearing about the importance of these quad 1 wins, but UNC couldn't even get more than one. We've been involved in dealing with the NCAA in the past. There are some watching now know that I brought litigation against the NCAA with a number of my colleagues a few years ago. I know there were a lot of chants to free Raekwon Battle, which is what we did when the NCAA rules for transfers was out of whack. It's hard for me to put that aside right now, knowing that West Virginia was out in front suing in 2023, and here we are, an NCAA. I don't know what's going on. Is this retribution? We're going to have to get to the bottom of that.
Hopefully they will, for West Virginia's sake. Some strong stuff. All right, Iona has fired their head basketball coach late yesterday. Tobin Anderson is out as their head coach. 17-17 last season. He was 33-34 in his 2 seasons at Iona. All right, first 4 matchups tonight. That controversial team, North Carolina, will be at it. First, we got St. Francis against Alabama State. Alabama State 3.5-point favorites tonight. It's in Dayton, Ohio. It is a 6:40 Eastern game. And the winner of this one gets to play Auburn. Congratulations in that one. Meanwhile, North Carolina, the controversial selection to the NCAA tournament, they are an 11 seed. So is San Diego State. They'll play tonight at 9:10 Eastern. UNC 4.5-point favorites in this one. And the winner will play Mississippi. In the NBA last night, the Knicks were down to the Heat, who have struggled in a bigger way than they've struggled in a long time. And they came back and won. Miami's now lost 8 games in a row. Mikal Bridges had 28 points. Josh Hart had his 8th triple-double of the season. The Knicks swept the season series for the first time, get this, since 1992. 1993. The Rockets have now won 7 games in a row. They win in overtime 144-137 against the 76ers. The Pacers have been playing some incredible close games. They did it again yesterday against the Timberwolves in overtime. Obi Toppin had 34 points. Rick Carlisle, after the game, talked about the performance.
It was a battle of attrition in a lot of ways for us because once Drew went out, then there's no way TJ could play the whole game from that point on. And so Quinn Jackson was going to be an important guy one way or the other. And then it was just, trying to piece it together. Anthony Edwards is as big a superhuman problem as there is in the game right now, and he made some spectacular plays. And then, on the very last possession, Thomas Bryant stayed square on Randall and forced a shot that was slightly short, and we're out of here alive.
All right, I don't know if I would have described it that way, alive, but so be it. All right, the Pistons dominated the Pelicans on the road. Cade Cunningham had 24 and 8. 127-81 the final. By the way, Zion Williamson had 30 points of the 81 that the Pelicans scored. They also announced that Trey Murphy III has a season-ending torn labrum injury that's going to cost him the remainder of the year, and hopefully he'll be okay for next season. Meanwhile, no Nikola Jokic. No Jamal Murray, and the Nuggets still beat the Warriors somehow, 114-105. Aaron Gordon had 38 points. Russell Westbrook had a triple-double. Steph Curry's status for tonight's game seems to be in jeopardy here a little bit. May not play, so keep an eye on that if you're betting that game. The Kings beat the Grizzlies 132-122. Domantas Sabonis was lost in this game to an ankle injury, and also the Suns beat the Raptors 129-89, trying to stay alive for the last play-in spot as Dallas is free-falling and Phoenix may be able to get that thing. Devin Booker had 27 points. In the NFL, the Steelers have signed Juan Thornhill to a one-year contract. Former second-round picks of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans are bringing in Ronald Darby on a one-year, $2.5 million deal. The Eagles signed Azeez Ojulari to a one-year, $4 million contract. And the Vikings said that center Garrett Bradbury is going to get released. He spent 6 seasons with the team. Lane Johnson, of course, is staying with the Eagles. He reworked his contract. He wants to be an Eagle for life, and it looks like he will be before he ends up retiring. So let's take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back, time for us to check in with Michael DeCourcy of Sporting News. We got all the spreads, we got all the games, and we're ready to go. Of course, games tonight and games tomorrow. And for those of you who want to stream us while watching the broadcast, download the SportsGrid app because the streaming quality is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't updated it in your iOS or Google Play Store, make sure you do it right now ahead of the Thursday Madness and the NCAA Tournament. We will take a quick time out and be back with more NewsWire with Michael DeCourcy next.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. But I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Michael DeCourcy is going to be very busy. We've got him here today to preview all the games for the NCAA Tournament. We're also going to put his feet to the fire for the biggest upset in round one of the NCAA Tournament before he goes. He's going to have to give us one. I'm not going to let him off the air. Mike, you're going to have to come back with me and do another segment if you don't. So just fair warning, start thinking about that here before we go. It could come anywhere in this segment here, by the way, but we need one big one. Welcome back. Welcome to the madness. I know we're limited on time. Let's jump in. Let's look at the East region. Duke is going to win their first game. I'm going to skip them. I think Alabama probably beats Robert Morris too. Whether they cover or not, I don't know. So let's talk about this. Wisconsin, Montana, Oregon, and Liberty. I believe Oregon plays one of the last games, if I'm not mistaken, either on Thursday night or Friday night. I can't remember which one. I know they have a late game. That should help them, though, I would think, right? Usually playing late.
Yeah, I mean, it's their home time zone. They're going to be in Seattle. They're going to be 2 hours up the road from 2.5, something like that, from campus. So it's definitely an advantage to it against a team in Liberty has to fly all the way across the country. Both teams will be reasonably rested, though, in terms of having played. So I like Liberty's team. I think they're really good. Oregon will have to play well, and you never know whether Oregon's going to play well. Jackson Shelstad, when he's on, they're really hard to beat. When Nate Biddle is playing dominant basketball and contributing in all different ways, one of the best big guys in the country, most of the time he's really good, but he has a game here and there where doesn't exist, and they can't afford that at any point now. He's got to dominate across the board. When he rebounds, passes, scores, they're a great team.
In the West region, the Gators earned the number 1 seed. They'll take on Norfolk State. Again, I mean, number 1 seeds do lose occasionally. I mean, we had it never happen, and then all of a sudden it kind of happened here. And the Gators are my team, so I'm not going to root for that. St. John's 18.5-point favorites against Omaha. UNC Wilmington, not a stranger to the tournament through the years. They play Texas Tech. UConn, 4.5-point favorites against Oklahoma. And then Missouri will take on number 11 Drake. I see a lot of people starting brackets taking Drake, interestingly enough. I see a lot of that. Anyway, break it down for me, Mike. Who do you like in this one?
Well, there's one thing that I will say is that I've noticed over the years, and I did an article about this, gosh, it's been more than a decade, but I call it the 801 Club. And what the 801 Club is every team that has won more than 80% of its games. Those teams are hard to get out of this tournament. And Drake is an easy member of that club. They are 30-3. They are well above 80%. Those teams know how to win. Sometimes it comes in, as in the case of Drake, it comes in a mid-major conference. But those teams know how to win. And it often takes another member of the 801 Club to eliminate an 801 Club member. And Mizzou is not in that club. It's one of the reasons why I went along with that. And I did pick Drake to advance past Mizzou. The other reason being Mizzou really wants to go. That's their game. And Drake is going to slow you down. It's impossible for a fast team to speed up a slow team. It's very easy for a slow team to slow down a fast team.
In the South, a number of people think that this will be where the number 1 seed goes down eventually in Auburn, just, I guess, because of the last couple of weeks, the way that they played, but they've lost to some really good teams. So they're going to have their hands full. Will it be Michigan State taking them down? Will it be Iowa State taking them down? Maybe Michigan State loses. Maybe Iowa State loses. And then certainly the nightcap, you have the most compelling matchup with Michigan, who went on this little roll at the end. But, man, they got a tough matchup against UC San Diego.
Yeah, I thought UC San Diego might slip up to an 11 seed with the way things were going. But ultimately, with the way the bracket settled, they're at 12, and that's a tough deal for Michigan. That's an outstanding team. I watched them in their Big West Championship game on Saturday night against UC Irvine, which is an outstanding team, really well coached. And San Diego's got terrific players. They've got a little bit of size, excellent guard play, some of the best guard play in the NCAA tournament. And so it's going to be very hard for Michigan. What Michigan has to make happen, they have to make the size matter. Vlad Golden has to get the ball deep. He's 7 feet. He's got unbelievable hands and strength. Danny Wolf is a 7-foot playmaker. You don't see a lot of those guys. And they have to make it matter. They have to, like, you've never seen this before, San Diego, and we're going to make it count. And when they do that, they're very hard to beat, but it doesn't always come.
Now, in the Midwest, right now, Houston is the biggest favorite of any team on the board in the NCAA tournament. I'm assuming Duke will be once, they get the winner of whoever that 16 is. But they play SIU Edwardsville to start off. Tennessee takes on Wofford, another team that is no stranger to close games and winning games in the NCAA tournament. Kentucky takes on Troy. and then Gonzaga against Georgia, which to me is a fascinating matchup because I could see Gonzaga putting up 80 and I could see them putting up 50 and losing. I don't know which one.
Yeah, it is a fascinating matchup. Gonzaga had somewhat a disappointing team through the course of the year. Played a difficult schedule early, as they always do, so they can be positioned to be seeded well in the tournament, and did not play great basketball. Did not play great basketball through January and some of February. They started to look like themselves later, and then they played St. Mary's in the conference tournament. And that's when they really started to look like the team that they should be with the assembled talent that they have and the Hall of Fame level coach that they have. They should be the team that played St. Mary's in the West Coast Conference Final. If they are that team, not only is Georgia in trouble, but so is the number 1 seed. And that's what I'm fascinated to see, because we have a string of, I think it's now 9 consecutive tournaments in which Gonzaga has advanced to the Sweet 16, 9 in a row. 10 in a row is the record. So if they can get there this year, it's going to be the hardest probably they've ever had to do to get there. But if they can get there this year, they'll tie the record for the most consecutive trips to the Sweet 16. Pretty remarkable for a team from a school in the West Coast Conference.
And your biggest upset of round 1 is?
I'm going to go the Drake one. I think that's the one I feel the most confident in. It's always hard to see these things coming, but I believe in the 801 club. I believe in the Bulldogs, and I believe that pace matters in any basketball game.
Great stuff as always, Mike. Enjoy the madness. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll be right back previewing tonight's play-in game.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All college basketball from here on out on our show, folks. If you're really into, some other sport, I got to tell you, this may be a week to take off. If you love college hoops, you better stick with SportsGrid all week long. We'll be breaking this thing down constantly, so we're going to start right now here. And we're going to hear from Scott Farrell. He's got his thoughts on the Thursday slate. Also, Ben will give us a tip-off and a preview of the Carolina game this evening. Let's go to the SportsGrid sound-off. Well, the University of North Carolina is no stranger to pressure, but not just from the inside. There's a lot on the outside. A lot of people think that UNC does not deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, but they got their first shot tonight to see if they can advance and shut everybody up. Here's Ben Stevens with a preview of one of the first 4 games.
The big dance begins in Dayton, Ohio, a first 4 matchup between 2 of the Final 4 teams into the men's NCAA tournament. It's North Carolina and San Diego State to be the true 11 seed in the South region. Now, UNC's inclusion as the last team into the big dance was rather controversial, but UNC, outside of its 2 last games against Duke, playing good ball, entering the big dance. They have won 8 of those 10 games against teams that have not been named the Duke Blue Devils, and they have covered in all 8 of those victories. San Diego State, a team that made it to the national championship game just 2 seasons ago out of the Mountain West, did struggle in its tournament in Las Vegas. The Aztecs, though, one of the most stout defenses you will see in college hoops. Carolina, a 3.5-point favorite to win in the first 4 and then move on to the round of 64. Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks, Ben. Don't forget you can catch all of our folks and our coverage immediately after NewsWire, Thursday and Friday, exclusively here on SportsGrid. Meanwhile, what to make of some of these games on Thursday? Which Gonzaga team will show up against Georgia? What about VCU, BYU, and McNeese State? Can they make the most of this tournament appearance against Clemson? Here's Scott Farrell's thoughts on the games on Thursday.
McNeese State against Clemson, VCU and BYU, Gonzaga and Georgia. So 3 really good games that are all tipping, between 2:30 and 4:30 that we're going to have.
Yeah, look at the respect they're giving McNeese against a heavyweight in Clemson. Clemson's no joke this year. What they win, 27 games or something? Like, they were insane. And I think that VCU team's getting massive respect as well. BYU can really shoot, and VCU can play anybody, so that's incredible. I don't think Georgia's good. I really don't. So to me, I think it's a fairly easy game for Gonzaga. This is like easy work for them. I don't think they're what they used to be in the last several years when they were legit and had a shot to go to the Final Four and win a national championship. I don't believe that this year at all, but I believe it in this game.
All right, well, I think Scott is onto something here, especially for a couple of big upsets on Thursday. Meanwhile, Deion Sanders is trying to change the game yet again. This time, it's the spring game. Coach Prime says it's time to build up the game and make it like an all-star event in Boulder, Colorado. Here's Prime time on what he wants to try and accomplish.
Spring game will be televised. ESPN2 will broadcast spring game on the 19th. We got to sell this thing out and pack this thing because the way the trend is going, you never know if this is going to be the last spring game. I don't believe in that. I don't really want to condone that. I would like to play the spring. Actually, I like to play against another team in the spring. That's what I'm trying to do right now, to have it competitive. Playing against your own guys kind of get monotonous, and you really can't tell the level of your guys because, it's the same old. Everybody kind of know each other towards the end. I would like to style it like the pros. I would like to practice against someone for a few days, then you have the spring game. And I think the public will be satisfied with that tremendously. I think it's a tremendous idea. Yeah, I've told those personnel who should understand that it's a tremendous idea.
I think right now the thing with spring games in college football is, like Deion said, I think there's probably a better chance of them not happening as opposed to playing against other teams. Just with this new world of NIL deals, a lot of these kids are not even available or even want to play in these games. Never used to hear that in college sports, but with the money that's out there, it's hard to ask now to play extra games outside of these practices. And so not sure if that's going to get accomplished. All right, coming up next, we go deeper into the NCAA tournament with one of our SportsGrid analysts, Mark Zinno. He'll give us some predictions on some of the games coming up on Thursday and Friday in the NCAA tournament. And also, don't forget, you can catch Smiley Kaufman at the top of the hour talking some golf. Masters just a short time away. We'll have the very latest in golf at the top of the hour at noon. We'll be back with more NewsWire next.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's fire up some more college basketball talk. Mark Zinno is in the house getting ready for the games tonight, the games tomorrow, and then, of course, it all begins on Thursday, at least back in my day. That's when it all began, back on Thursday. The noon to midnight watch begins. Mark, thanks for coming on the show. Let's dive right in here and take a look at the South and, maybe how things work out. I'm always curious about, like, the big upset predictions here. So I'll ask you for yours before we're gone about the biggest one here, the biggest, low seed to be the high seed. We'll wait on Auburn to see who they end up facing. It's I would assume going to be a win for Auburn, but you never know. We have had a couple of ones go down: Michigan State, Iowa State, Michigan, Marquette, A&M. They are all favorites going into their games. There are a lot of people who feel that this is the toughest road to go to the Final Four because Iowa State extremely capable of winning it all. Michigan State extremely capable of winning it all, along with Auburn too. How do you see this shaking out?
Well, I have Iowa State winning the South. I think that when it comes down to it, I think this could be the bracket that sees a lot of chaos and a lot of upsets. Number one, I have UC San Diego beating Michigan. I have Yale beating A&M. I think we get a 12-13 matchup in the second round. And I'm pretty confident if UNC gets past San Diego State tonight, which I think they will, they're going to beat Ole Miss, and they will be into the round of 32. So I think we get a bunch of upsets in this round, and I think when it comes down to it in the Elite Eight, I have Auburn and Iowa State. Iowa State cutting the nets down in the South region.
All right, fair enough. Now in the West, my Gators are taking on Norfolk State. They've come on as strong as any team in college basketball. For them to get through, it's going to be against a very tough-tested UConn team. If they beat Oklahoma, by the way, which is no guarantee. St. John's is the 2 seed. Massive favorites over Omaha. Texas Tech will play Wilmington, who's no stranger to the tournament. Drake is a popular upset pick against Missouri. And then we have Kansas against Arkansas. And, Mark, a lot of folks seem to be taking Arkansas as well. That's a tough team to predict, too, from a game-to-game basis.
Well, just remember, this region here is the number one reminder that this will always be a made-for-TV event. Just kind of look at the bottom of that bracket there. You have St. John's in the 2:15 game against Omaha, coached by Rick Pitino. And then you have the 7-10 matchup between Bill Self and John Calipari, who will prohibitively end up facing Rick Pitino in the next round, right? Like, this is always going to be a made-for-TV event. And that was set up that way on purpose. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But look, I have coming out of the West, Florida winning it, and I'll save you the suspense. I have Florida winning the whole thing. Despite my St. John's alliance and my covering Maryland for nearly a decade, I don't know that Florida isn't the best team in the country. I think they are. I think they prove it. While I think this might be the most chalky of all the brackets, where we do get a 1-4, 2-3 matchup into this Sweet 16, I think that this is really kind of the one that holds form the most. Although I do think Colorado State is a slight favorite over Memphis, is a spot where we get the lone upset. And I agree that Drake is a very good chance to upset Missouri.
Yeah, a lot of people on Drake too. In this one in the Midwest, a lot of folks have picked the number 2 seed, Tennessee, to beat Houston at the end. That's again chalky as well, but Tennessee's plus 370. I'm seeing a ton of that. And then you have, some other teams that are really not predicted to make a lot of noise in this tournament, to be honest. Kentucky, Clemson, Gonzaga, UCLA, they all have their holes. I've seen, a lot of McNeese backing here in the 5-12. Usually every year there's a 12 that beats a 5. We know that. So what's on deck here for the Midwest?
Well, I don't have Houston coming out of this bracket, but I don't have Tennessee beating them either. I officially, in this bracket, it's going to surprise some people, I have Clemson beating Houston. I think Clemson makes a deep run in this tournament. They profile like all the national champions have for the last 20 years. When you talk about terms in top 20 in offensive efficiency and top 30 in defensive efficiency, they are super efficient on offense. They don't turn the ball over. They are very, very smart. They make a lot of threes. They make their free throws. They're a very good shooting team. They control the pace of the game. Their defense is very good in, extending possessions and forcing shots at the end of the shot clock to their opponents, right? Like their opponents hold on to the ball for a long time, but they don't give up a ton of good shots because they're top 90 in effective field goal percentage defense in the country. So they do everything well, this Clemson team. And if you look at their 4 regular season losses, 3 of them were in overtime. They know how to play in close games. They know how to win close games. I think this is a very undervalued Clemson team. I know a lot of people think McNeese is going to be a 12-5 upset. I kind of just would remind everybody the 12-5 upsets in recent years have waned off. We've seen a lot more 3-14 upsets and 14-3 upsets, and even these 6-11 upsets start to take more than the 12-5. So I don't think Clemson loses to McNeese State. Whether they cover that number is a whole different conversation, so to speak. But neither one of these teams play all that fast. I think this is an under game between McNeese and Clemson. If that's the case, Clemson is going to be more likely to win the thing. So that bracket in and of itself, I think Clemson beats Houston. Tennessee ultimately comes out of that bracket.
All right. And finally, in the East, Duke will wait for the winner of Mount St. Mary's American. I would anticipate that being the biggest spread of the NCAA tournament. Once we know, Alabama takes on Robert Morris. Alabama bet the over pretty much all season. Wisconsin, Montana, Oregon Liberty. BYU takes on VCU. And then, as you mentioned, this is the number 1 most picked big upset thus far since the brackets have been out in the last 48 hours. And again, when I talk about a lot, I mean like 20% of people in the brackets have Oregon beating Arizona outright. And I'm guessing, Mark, that's because of 2 things. Akron's a really popular team right now with the way that they play down the stretch, and also Arizona, no stranger to that big upset in history in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm rolling the dice here. I got the Wildcats coming out of this bracket. I got Arizona winning it. Get their first round might be the one spot they get tripped up. But if they don't, I think that's the one team that matches up very well with Duke, even with Cooper Flagg healthy. They play fast. They are good on the defensive end. They're lengthy. They can rebound. They can shoot. This is another Arizona team that profiles really well when it comes to what national champions look like. And I like this team a lot. I've bet on them a lot this year. They're not a great three-point shooting team, but because they dominate on the glass so much and they work inside so well, they can eat you up there. I think they end up getting through and beating Duke in the top half of this bracket. In the bottom half, I have Alabama, upsetting, not upsetting, but going all the way through to the Elite Eight and losing to Arizona. So I'm a little shaky on Wisconsin. I think the Grizzlies in the first round could give them a real scare. I don't know if Montana can win the game, but It'll be interesting to see in the BYU-VCU game. That was a game when the number came out. The total was 142. I screamed about the over, and what do you know? It's at 147 a day after this thing opened up. So everybody's seeing that at elevation, BYU and VCU are going to make a ton of shots here, and I think that's really the case. But I think VCU might be able to pull off the upset there, the slight upset there, and really no other real surprises. Could Liberty beat Oregon? Yeah, because Oregon's pretty schizophrenic, but I don't see Liberty winning more than one game.
Okay, so ATS, what do you think your biggest upset is going to be? You know, again, we won't hold you to it. These things are wild, but what do you got the biggest ATS upset?
I will give you a couple here real quick. One, I think Bryant has a chance to beat Michigan State outright. That is a spot where I would take Bryant plus 10.5 in the first half, because I'll say this repeatedly about a lot of these smaller school teams. If they ain't covering early, they ain't covering late. Like Norfolk State is playing Florida. Norfolk State is getting 29 points in this game. They're getting 16.5 in the first half. It's really hard to outscore your opponent by a point a minute in the first half alone. Like Norfolk State in the first half, 16.5 is just a pure numbers play, because so many things have to go right for that to happen. So same thing with Montana. If they could stay in the game early, they can stay in the game late. But if they're down by 10 early, they're not making a raging comeback against this Wisconsin team.
Mark, great stuff. Enjoy the tournament. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, Craig. Thank you.
Exclusive interview coming up with Coach Young and Fran McCaffery next. Don't go away.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. You may have heard over the last day or two, Fran McCaffery no longer going to be the head coach at the University of Iowa, and the Hawkeyes will be looking for someone new. But meanwhile, what does the future hold for Coach McCaffery in the future? Well, the good news is you're about to find out, because our very own Coach Young had a chance to go one-on-one with Coach on betting above the rim. And after 15 seasons, he's looking for another spot to coach, said that he's going to stick around, try and figure things out. The big dance, of course, is coming, and you can certainly watch Betting Above the Rim everywhere here on SportsGrid. In addition, on demand on the SportsGrid On Demand channel and Spotify. So here is Coach Young and Coach McCaffery delivering the news on his future and what may be next for the legendary coach.
Personally, how are you feeling right now as a coach that's done this for a long time? Do you still feel like you have a lot left in the tank?
No question. I love coaching. I love interaction with young people. You think about it, James, and we met many years ago. Being able to go to work on a college campus, mentor and work with young people, I feel like my life hasn't changed in 40 years. Whether it was at Lehigh, UNCG, Siena, or Iowa. We're doing the same things. We're building relationships with families, recruiting student athletes to our school, and helping them reach their potential.
To me, when I see you on the sideline, people see a guy that's intense, that is no nonsense. I still think about the stare down at the ref on the baseline of one game where I thought it was the entire timeout. If I was an assistant, I probably would have got in trouble because I would have tried to grab you and pulled you away. Anything else in this last minute that you want to let people know that maybe don't know about Coach Fran McCaffery?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, James. I don't want people to think of me that way. During the heat of battle, there's only one person that can advocate for the players, and that's the head coach, and that's what I do. Beyond that, I love my guys. I'm as friendly as they come when it comes to interacting with fans, with people. I don't talk much louder than this than I'm talking with you throughout the course of the day. I've got a great sense of humor. I like to have fun, not only with my job, with the guys, but in life. My assistants love working for me. And there's an incredible amount of respect that has to be across the board. And that's how I live my life. And that's what creates the passion that I have for this profession.
But on the talent side, you haven't had the 4-star, the 5-star recruits. You took Luka Garza. You took the Murray twins. And let's be honest, recruiting in Iowa is not like recruiting in New York City. Talk to me about developing talent, which I think is still so important in today's game.
You know, James, you said it earlier. Okay, what's the key to it all? The key is culture. How do you build culture? And that's what we've done everywhere I've been. You know, it's easy to talk about, okay, I coached 3 teams that went to the NCAA tournament from 1 bid leagues. Nobody else has ever done that. I'm one of the few coaches that have coached 4 teams that have gone to the NCAA tournament. Each one was a different challenge. All right, so how do you convince young people to come play for you? And how do you continue to help them develop? Character. You know, I'm often asked, James, okay, what do you look for in recruiting? Well, you know, you and I can walk into any gym in America and say, okay, that kid can play. You know, he can run and jump. He's got a great handle. He can shoot the ball. He's big and strong. All right, that's easy. All right. Is he unselfish? Does he prioritize winning? Is he a great teammate? How will he respond when things aren't going so well? How does he respond in today's climate where I'm talking to him one minute and his agent's talking to him the next? These are different times. You stay true to who you are and you prioritize character.
If you had a one-day prep, you get through round 1, you're going to round 2. Who were the toughest, or who do you think now are the toughest coaches to prepare for with only 1 day to prep from round 1, let's say round 2?
Well, I think the hardest thing is the complexity of what they do, whether it be they change defenses or they play a matchup or they press you, because not a lot of teams play zone, nor do a lot of teams press. All right. Now, obviously, the obvious is, do they have 2 or 3 guys that are elite? Because they're going to be a handful. But how are they going to defend you? And how do you get your guys ready? Okay, they're going to switch everything. they're going to be ultra physical. They're that team that's going to foul you 5 times a possession. And the game is going to be a bloodbath, just a fist fight. Those are the hardest teams, I think, to prepare for.
Exclusive with Coach here on, of course, SportsGrid. Great stuff there from JY. All right, now let's get to tonight's games in college basketball. 16 seeds going at it in Dayton, Ohio at 6:40 Eastern as Alabama State takes on St. Francis. So get ready for that big matchup, as Auburn will be watching the video tonight to see who they're going to end up playing. Alabama State, by the way, 3.5-point favorites in game 1 of the first 4. Then immediately after that in Dayton, they will, basically settle on who the 11th seed is going to win between these two teams, North Carolina and San Diego State. UNC 4.5-point favorites. This game is supposed to tip off around 9:10 Eastern. I say supposed to because you never know. It's the tournament. And the winner will play against Mississippi. So those are the 2 games tonight. Make sure you keep it right here to SportsGrid for our in-game live programming, and we'll let you know exactly who ends up winning and who is going to move on to the big dance on Thursday and Friday as well. In Major League Baseball, it was opening day today. In case you missed it, you're just waking up. In Tokyo, the Dodgers ended up winning game 1 of their series against the Cubs. Final score was 4-1. Dodgers now 1-0 on the season, on their way to 162-0, right? That's not the way it's going to be. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. When we come back next, a new trailer is out for one of my favorite movies ever. I'll tell you what that is next.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really liked it that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Just forget about it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Big news out of New York. Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5. OG Anunoby cleared for 5-on-5. That's big news for the Knicks as they start to get themselves healthy. It's about constructing the right roster, the combination of veterans, young guys, and transfers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. He's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Didn't think that 2 of our topics as we end the show would be surrounding former members of Saturday Night Live, but that's kind of where we are. By the way, for 2 very different reasons. It's time now for some last licks. All right, set your calendars for July the 25th, especially if you have Netflix. It is back after decades. Happy Gilmore 2 is going to be debuted on the streaming service at the end of July, July 25th. It seems pretty quick, by the way. I mean, it seems like they just started making this movie less than a year ago. But anyway, Adam Sandler is back. He's got his golf clubs. The trailer is posted online. It's very easy to find anywhere that you have an internet connection, which is everywhere in the world these days. Also in the cast of Happy Gilmore 2 is Travis Kelce, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, and Paige Sporanic of our very own SportsGrid here. So make sure you end up catching that movie if you like. I said that Happy Gilmore was one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know. I think I did that just to get you to keep watching the show. I think my favorite Adam Sandler movie, because everyone does this, I think, is maybe Billy Madison, his first one. I really do. I kind of think that was my favorite of all. But this is definitely up there with the others too. Great movie coming out on July 25th on Netflix. So Adam Sandler was on Saturday Night Live for many years. So was Tracy Morgan. Tracy Morgan, as you may or may not know, has had some health issues through the years, but this was not something that anybody could have expected at the game last night. And it is probably the #1 trending item on social media right now, so we thought we would bring it at the end of the show. Tracy Morgan had himself a night at the Heat-Knicks game. In fact, Tracy Morgan was seen bleeding from his nose and also throwing up pretty profusely. I don't know if you could really see that there, but that's probably a good thing. Normally I get mad that we can't see the images here on the show, but I don't think that's a bad thing today. So Tracy Morgan threw up, had to be carted off the court. He did go on Instagram this morning and said that he is suffering from food poisoning. That's what he said happened. We'll take his word for it. He's had some, kidney transplant issues. He was on Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, just a few weeks ago. So we wish Tracy Morgan the very best. And by the way, that is one item that you do not want to Google and you do not want to look at, especially considering lunchtime here on the East Coast is probably about 5-10 minutes away. All right, well, Staten Island, very popular for a lot of different things, pizza, good food, etc. One of the boroughs. Didn't know that this was possible, and I'm going to question it, but here we go. There is a story that was posted by the ABC affiliate in New York City this morning that says that Jody's Club Forest in Staten Island says that they were the actual bar, get this, that helped ignite the NCAA Tournament Bracket Challenge. Like those of us who remember doing the brackets, printing them out, writing them down, picking the games and giving it to someone else. Well, they said back in 1976, they had the rules. It was $10. All you did was pick the final 4 teams and the national champion, and the total points was a tiebreaker. And there was 88 total entries, and if you won, you got $880. Now, by the time that Jody's Club shut down the pool in 2006, the IRS was looking into it, Sports Illustrated was looking into it, and that is why they did, because they said that they used to give out a $1.6 million prize to the winner, the little bar in Staten Island. So, hey, look, maybe they were the ones that ended up inventing this. I could sort of question that nobody thought to do this in the early 70s or even, the NCAA tournament's been around a long time. Hard to believe that this is the first time that 76 was when they did it. But, hey, there's got to be a first for everything, and in this case, they're the first for doing that. So if that is in the Hall of Fame of Staten Island, so be it. All right, fair enough. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Michael DeCourcy for coming on the show. Also, thanks to Coach Young with Coach McCaffery in that interview as well. Mark Zinno on the program, so naturally thank him and all of you for watching the show and streaming us here on the show again today. Coming up at noon Eastern, Golf Talk with Smiley. That's followed by Scott Farrell, Coast to Coast. Lots of college basketball talk naturally with the games tonight. Game time decisions. And then in-game live game day, and it's all followed by Gabe on Sports Rage tonight, tweeting out picks as fast as he possibly can. I'm sure you'll get a lot of that overnight and tomorrow. Thanks again to our director, Luke, for a fantastic job. Thanks to Alex for filling in once again. For Frank, who's somewhere in Mexico, apparently, hopefully gets to come back to the show. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how he ends up doing on his little spring break. I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back with you with a recap of some of the first 4 games and preview the rest on our next edition of NewsWire, which is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Have a great day, everyone. See you then.